Welcome to my channel Sella Buzz. At 84, Dionne Warwick says he was the only one who could do that to me. Dionne Warwick was born Marie Dionne Warwick on December 12, 1940 in East Orange, New Jersey. She grew up in a family where music was everywhere. Her mom, Lee Drinkard Warwick, managed a famous gospel group called the Drinkard Singers. Her dad, Mansell Warwick, worked to support the family and loved music too. From the start, Dionne was around powerful singing voices, church worship, and African-American gospel music. She grew up in a loving family that believed in faith, strength, and helping others. The Warwick house was full of music all the time. There were rehearsals, shows, and church services that shaped Dionne's early memories. Dionne, her sister Dee, and her aunt Cissy Houston sang gospel music together. They had their own group called the Gospelaires. Through this group, Dionne learned how to perform on stage. She practiced the clear singing and feeling that would make her famous later. Her family connections would help her music career a lot. Dionne was part of a family with some of the best singers ever. Her cousin was the amazing Whitney Houston, who became one of the greatest singers of all time. Another cousin, Dionne Warwick, also became successful in music. This family of talented people created a place where dreams and art could grow. Dionne quickly knew she was meant to have a music career that would take her far beyond her church. Dionne Warwick's path to being famous started small. She worked as a backup singer while going to school at Hart College of Music in Connecticut. Along with gospel music, she sang on records for big artists. Music industry people noticed her amazing voice and control. During one of these recording sessions, fate stepped in. In the early 1960s, Dionne met young songwriter Burt Bacharach and lyricist Hal David. The three of them would create one of the most famous partnerships in music history. Bacharach was amazed by Dionne's perfect singing and her ability to show gentle emotions. With Hal David's touching lyrics, the team made songs that showed off Dionne's special talents. Her ability to mix class with warmth and shyness with confidence made her special. Her first hit song, Don't Make Me Over in 1962, started a career that would change pop and soul music forever. The 1960s became Dionne's time to shine. She had many unforgettable hit songs like Walk On By, Anyone Who Had a Heart, Message, To Michael, I Say a Little Prayer, and Do You Know the Way to San Jose. These songs were more than just radio hits. They became important cultural songs that mixed elegance with music everyone could enjoy. This made Dionne Warwick one of the top female singers of her time. Warwick's career is special not just because of how many hits she had, but because her music never gets old. She sold more than 100 million records around the world and had over 50 songs on the Billboard charts. She created a space that few singers could match. Her smooth, mezzo-soprano voice carried a special emotional power that made every song feel both personal and universal to everyone who heard it. In the 1970s, Dionne kept growing with the changing world of popular music. She signed with Warner Brothers Records and later with Arista Records. There she had a big comeback under Clive Davis's guidance. Songs like I'll Never Love This Way Again and Deja Vu won her new Grammy Awards and proved she could still succeed in the competitive music business. One of the biggest moments in her career happened in 1985. She teamed up with Elton John, Gladys Knight, and Stevie Wonder to record That's What Friends Are For. At first, it was just meant to be a simple collaboration between friends. But the song became an anthem of caring when they decided to give the money to AIDS research. The song not only became a #1 hit, but it also showed Warwick's ability to use her fame for important causes. It became a defining moment in the fight against AIDS and showed Warwick as both a performer and someone who cares about helping others. Her list of collaborations reads like a who's who of music royalty and famous people, from working with Isaac Hayes and Smokey Robinson to singing duets with Luther Vandross and Jeffrey Osborne. Dionne's voice blended perfectly with others while keeping its own special sound. She stood as a unifying force in music, crossing different genres and generations. Beyond her amazing achievements in music, Dionne Warwick has always used her fame to help make the world better. She has been deeply involved with humanitarian and charity work, using her voice for global causes. In 2002, she was chosen as a United Nations Global Ambassador for the Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO. In this job, she traveled all over the world, raising awareness about hunger and food security, especially in poor countries. She became a symbol of hope for communities in need, showing that celebrity influence could be turned into real-world change. Her advocacy work has also included efforts to fight HIV/AIDS stigma, racial inequality, and poverty. The success of That's What Friends Are For was just one example of her ability to bring communities together through music. But she continued to champion these issues long after the song stopped playing on the charts. Warwick showed that she was not just a singer with a golden voice, but also a woman with a deep sense of doing what's right. Even as music trends changed in the 1990s and 2000s, Dionne Warwick stayed relevant and respected. She continued to tour around the world, perform for sold-out audiences, and release new recordings that introduced her artistry to younger generations. Her special way of singing and graceful interpretations of lyrics made sure that her work never lost its emotional impact. In 1966, when she was becoming famous as one of the most promising voices in American popular music, Dionne Warwick married actor and drummer William Elliott. Their marriage got attention not only because Warwick was already becoming a household name with hit songs written by Burt Bacharach and Hal David, but also because Elliott was himself a talented musician and performer. He was best known as a jazz drummer and occasional actor. The two shared a love for music and entertainment. However, like many young couples trying to balance love, career, and the pressures of fame, their marriage had problems early on. Just a year later, in May 1967, the couple got divorced, ending a brief but passionate chapter in Warwick's personal life. But the story of Warwick and Elliott did not end there. Despite the problems that caused their first separation, the couple discovered that their bond was too strong to be completely broken. After a period of getting back together, they decided to give their marriage another chance. In a romantic gesture, Warwick and Elliott remarried in August 1967, choosing the enchanting and glamorous setting of Milan, Italy, as the location for their second wedding. Milan, known as one of the fashion capitals of the world, provided a strikingly elegant backdrop for their renewed commitment. The remarriage symbolized a fresh beginning filled with hope, forgiveness, and the promise of stability for the future. Their family life began to grow in the years that followed. On January 18, 1969, while living in East Orange, New Jersey, Dionne Warwick experienced one of the happiest moments of her life when she gave birth to her first son, David Elliott. David's arrival marked a new era for Warwick, who, despite her demanding schedule as an international star, embraced motherhood with deep love and devotion. East Orange, where she was living at the time, became a place where Warwick could attempt to balance her extraordinary career with the responsibilities and joys of raising a child. David would later follow in his parents' footsteps, pursuing a career in music and becoming a drummer and vocalist in his own right, a clear reflection of the artistic heritage passed down to him. A few years later, in 1973, Warwick's family grew, once again when she gave birth to her second son, Damon Elliott. With Damon's arrival, Warwick and Elliott now had two sons, and their household reflected a blend of creativity, culture, and the complexities of show business life. Damon, like his older brother, inherited the family's musical genes and went on to become a Grammy Award-winning producer and songwriter, working with some of the biggest names in contemporary music. His career, much like David's, stands as proof of the musical environment and inspiration they both experienced while growing up in the Warwick-Elliott household. However, despite the blessings of family and the attempts at getting back together, Warwick and Elliott's marriage eventually began to fall apart once again under the strain of the entertainment world and personal differences. On May 30, 1975, after nearly a decade of trying to make their relationship work, the couple separated. Warwick, who had always tried to balance her professional commitments with her personal life, faced the painful reality that her marriage could no longer be sustained. Later that year, in December 1975, she was officially granted a divorce in Los Angeles, California, bringing to an end a marriage that had been marked by both passion and trouble. Though their relationship had its struggles and ultimately did not last, the years Warwick and Elliott spent together left a permanent mark on her personal story. Their sons, David and Damon, would grow to become her pride and joy, carrying forward both the musical and creative legacies of their parents. The experiences of marriage getting back together, Motherhood and divorce deeply shaped Warwick's personal journey, giving her a strength and depth that continued to echo throughout her life and career. At 84 years old, Dionne Warwick, the legendary voice behind some of the most timeless classics in music history, surprised many when she made a deeply personal confession about one of the greatest entertainers of all time, Frank Sinatra. With a lifetime of achievements, awards, and meetings with some of the most remarkable figures in show business, Warwick has always carried herself with grace, honesty, and an unshakable presence. Yet when she thought about Sinatra, there was a rare vulnerability in her words, an acknowledgement that even someone as strong and self-assured as she could be, deeply moved by another person's influence. "He was the only one who could do that to me," she admitted softly, her voice carrying the weight of decades of memories. For Dionne Warwick, who built a career on poise and professionalism, Sinatra was more than just a fellow artist. He had an aura that could disarm even the most seasoned performer. Sinatra was the perfect example of confidence, a man whose voice could melt a room and whose presence demanded attention. Dionne often spoke of how she admired his ability to interpret a song, not just with technical skill but with raw emotion that left listeners captivated. When Frank sang, "You believed every single word," she said, adding that his ability to live inside a lyric was something she both studied and treasured. For a singer like Warwick, who herself was known for the emotional clarity of her delivery, that recognition meant everything to her. She remembered how their paths crossed during the golden years of American music. Both were at the height of their powers in the 1960s and 1970s, performing on the same stages, appearing at the same events, and often being surrounded by the same circle of industry icons. But even in such elite company, Sinatra stood apart. He was commanding without ever raising his voice, Warwick confessed. She described how whenever Sinatra entered a room, the atmosphere seemed to shift as though everyone subconsciously adjusted themselves to his rhythm. For Warwick, who had known countless stars, there was no one else who had ever had that effect on her. Warwick went on to explain that Sinatra had a way of lifting her both musically and personally. He was generous with his advice, particularly when it came to navigating the pressures of fame. "Frank told me once, 'Don't let them put you in a box, baby. You sing what you feel, and the people will feel it too.'" Those words stayed with her throughout her career, helping her cross genres effortlessly, moving from gospel roots to pop hits to soulful ballads, and even into collaborations that surprised her audiences. To Warwick, Sinatra's encouragement wasn't just professional, it was deeply personal. "He believed in me in a way that very few did," she reflected. What made Sinatra unique in Warwick's eyes was his ability to connect on a level beyond music. He had a way of making her feel seen, even in the whirlwind of celebrity life. "I could be in a room full of people, and if Frank was there, he'd find a way to let me know I mattered," she revealed. For a woman who had endured the highs and lows of fame, the scrutiny of the press, and the constant demands of the entertainment world, that kind of acknowledgement meant more than she could ever say. "He was the only one who could make me feel that way," she admitted, pausing before adding, "and I will never forget it." As she looked back over her long and distinguished career, Warwick did not hesitate to credit Sinatra as one of the defining figures in her journey. Though she has worked with legends like Burt Bacharach, Hal David, Stevie Wonder, and so many others, Sinatra's place in her life held a uniqueness all its own. "Frank was larger than life, but he never made me feel small," she said. Instead, he inspired her to rise, to bring her fullest self to every stage, every note, every song. Now, as Dionne Warwick reflects on her legacy at 84, her confession about Frank Sinatra feels like both a tribute and a glimpse into the heart of a woman who has spent her life giving music to the world. Her words carry an honesty that reminds us that even icons have their icons, that even the strongest voices are sometimes humbled by the presence of greatness. For Warwick, Sinatra wasn't just a star. He was the only one who could truly move her in ways she never forgot. And in that confession, she revealed not only her admiration for him, but also the timeless truth that music at its best is about connection. The kind that stays with you long after the last note fades.